Wild Review. I'm the Wild Reviewer, and today I'm going to review a thing. Have you ever given a review on something and years later you wonder if what you said still holds up? Well, I have! Hi there, I'm the Wild Reviewer, or at least I was told that's who I am, and this is Rewild, a sequel series to an old review show I used to do called The Wild Review. It ran for 6 seasons from 2015 to 2018, and some of the things that I've talked about, I have different opinions on. Or maybe I don't. That's the whole point of this series. If you are watching this, then that means you are joining me on an adventure as we are going to take a journey into my past to see if what I said in a previous Wild Review episode still holds up. We're gonna make comments about how young I used to look and stupid I used to sound sometimes. It kinda depends on what I was talking about. So, unless you have somewhere else important you need to be, which I highly doubt, seems like you're gonna be taking a journey with me into the past. This is the Wild Review Rewild.
Wild like wild.
I thought the name was cool. Hello, welcome to the Wild Review. I'm the Wild Reviewer, and welcome back to Rewild, a series where I look back at my old content, make comments about them, and then think that what I am saying now is much better than what I said previously. Today I'm displaying my geekiness. I am a Doctor Who geek, and surprisingly, I only have one episode dedicated to the show. There is another video where I briefly talk about the season 11 premiere of Doctor Who, but I talk about that very briefly along with a bunch of different other topics. I say surprisingly because you would think, me being a big fan of the show, I would have more videos on it than Lab Rats back in the day. But I've only done one. I've done one Doctor Who episode, and I don't fully understand why there weren't any more. Today we're going to look over that said Doctor Who episode. Now, I believe I gave just my overall opinion on what I thought about the show. This was in 2000 and something. January of 2018. That was after Peter Capaldi left the show and when Jodie Whittaker was technically in the show. Her first episode hadn't premiered yet, but she was essentially now in the role and all eyes were on her and the new companions and the general new direction of the show, essentially, run by Chris Chinbull. Seeing that this October, Jodie Whittaker will be leaving the show along with Chris Chinbull, and essentially this era of the show will also be ending, I think it's only fair that we watch what I have to say about the show, and at the end I give my thoughts on what we have seen, because I have been very quiet in terms of giving my thoughts on what we have gotten since these videos. So let's go on a journey. Let's get in the police box. Let us rewild Doctor Who. I never say that. Why did I say that? Let's look back at what I had to say on Doctor Who. For those who really don't know why the Christmas special is a big thing, I'm gonna get to all that, but let's just get down to basics. Doctor Who is probably one of the best sci-fi shows on television, and if you disagree, well, that's okay because it's your opinion, but I seem to like it, and I'm kind of a Doctor Who nerd, even though I don't exactly consider myself a Whovian, because I really don't know much about the classic series, but I'm slowly starting to learn about it, and I'm mostly a fan of the new series. I like Doctor Who. I think it's pretty cool. Somebody's very passionate about Doctor Who, I see. To expand a bit more on what I talked about in class, Doctor Who is a British sci-fi drama show that's also one of the longest running sci-fi shows in the world. Right now at 54 years, and this year it'll actually be 55 years. That's a lot of years. It's a show about a mysterious alien named the Doctor. He has a real name, but he decides to go by the name in a magical ship known as the TARDIS. Anywhere and every time, except basically dimensions. One episode kind of off future, another episode he could be in another planet, in another galaxy, another episode he could be in the past, travel one day, space and time, which I don't question each part of the aliens, and I should point out that most of the times I am such a geek! Holy Christ! Here's the thing with me. When I hear myself talk about things that I'm really interested in, I cringe a lot. Just listening to myself going over the plot of Doctor Who and talking about the monsters and the TARDIS and the character, like, it's weird. I'm not quite sure why I find it weird, but if I have to guess, maybe it has something to do with that Doctor Who is a geeky show. I don't know why sci-fi television has to be geeky in the first place. Maybe because it deals with science. That is the first word in the word sci-fi. The other word being fiction. I guess it's just a general reaction of just listening to somebody talking about a sci-fi show. It makes you sound like a geek. But that's not always a bad thing, because how else are you supposed to sound? Star Wars is very sci-fi, and hearing people talking about Star Wars can kind of feel the same way, especially if you don't know Star Wars, but at the same time, how else can you explain Star Wars without just explaining it? There's no other way for me to talk about Doctor Who and go over all the characters without sounding like a geek. It's just the show. I can't sit here and say the Daleks are the main antagonist of the show. They are these robot slash octopus squid-like characters on the inside of their shells from another planet that seek to destroy everything in the universe because they put themselves on a much higher pedestal than any other person, and they got involved with a war with all the Time Lords. Like, there's no other way for me to say that without sounding very geeky. That being said, I love geeks. Don't think I'm hating on anybody. I love every single one of you. You are passionate, and I admire that. I'm a geek myself. I am one of you. I'm wearing a Who shirt. I'm hoping that came out right. And just to jump into what I said also, the Weeping Angels were mentioned. There are the Weeping Angels, which at first just look like ordinary angel statues, but if you look away from them, you'll realize that they'll slowly start getting closer to you. The main object of those characters are you need to keep an eye on them, because if they touch you, they will send you back into time. Unlike any other alien in this show where it tries to kill you there and there, these aliens are very nice when it comes to killing you, because they just send you back in time and let you live to death. Out of every Doctor Who villain, the Weeping Angels are probably my favorite. I think they're a favorite to a lot of people. They are these alien creatures, at least I'm pretty sure they're alien. Their background and backstory and origins, they're very unknown, and I'm very interested to learn more about them. I think if Class had continued, which was one of the spin-offs of Doctor Who, which I actually talked about before Doctor Who, I think if Class continued, we would have gotten a little more about the Weeping Angels, because it seemed like they were going down a Weeping Angel road. But the Weeping Angels are my favorite villain in the show. I still stick with what I've always thought of when it comes to the Weeping Angels, that if I ever had to encounter a Doctor Who villain, I would want to encounter them. Because unlike every other villain, they don't do anything other than just send you back in time. They make you live to death. They just send you maybe 100 years into the past, and there's no way of coming back. So you could be born now and die in the 1950s. I think that's pretty cool. I'm leaving everybody I love behind, but if I have to die by one of these villains, I want it to be a Weeping Angel. I mean, if I have to physically go up to one myself, I will. And I'll touch the face. And I'll be like, just do it. Let's go. Let's go get some milkshakes in the 50s. I want to see Elvis. So it seems that in this Doctor Who video of mine, I just kind of went over the show. I didn't really touch upon so much when it came to Jodie Whittaker, although to be fair, we did not know a lot about her. But like I mentioned at the very beginning of this, I did talk about Doctor Who in the catch-up video that I did right before the Christmas mini-series. So we're going to take a look at that, because I know for a fact I talked about Jodie's first episode. So at the timing of this recording, I gotta make this clear because a few weeks will go by from this. I'm filming this a few days after the premiere of The Woman Who Fell to Earth. But I do want to give my little opinion of what I thought of the premiere episode. The first episode, I enjoyed it. It's going to take a little time for me to get used to the characters and everything because all it is just new. Like, there's no Bill or Nardole. There wasn't even a TARDIS in this episode. It was just Jodie Whittaker playing the Doctor. And I think she was an amazing Doctor. I can definitely see her being it now. I won't officially consider her an amazing one until I see a little bit more of her. But I've always been up for a female Doctor, and I think she does it very well. It took a little while in the episode for her to kind of show it because she's kind of transitioning from Capaldi and she's acting all weird. But I really enjoyed it. I think the other characters work very well with her as well. The other cast members in the show do very well. Yeah. Nothing to add on. Essentially, how I felt with that is exactly how I feel now. The villain was pretty cool. Tim Shaw, that's a really... he looks like a Doctor Who monster. Of course, we're probably never going to see him again, or maybe we will. I don't know. But I like the fact that he's all creepy with all those teeth on his face. That's... Buddy, you're never going to see Tim Shaw again. At least I don't think so. I mean, Jodie's last episode is yet to air. I don't know, we'll see. Now, I'll admit a lot has not changed in 5 years, especially when it comes to this era of Doctor Who, which I do have to kind of talk about, finally. But I definitely enjoyed it. I thought it was a great introduction to Jodie Whittaker. Not to sound wrong, however you want to take that. I do know when Jodie was announced, there was a lot of backlash because the character had never been played by a female before. And this was a big step. This was a huge step in the show's history. A lot of people were very skeptical of whether or not the show would do very well with her in the role. I myself also feared it a little, but I was more excited than fearful. So that fear was probably like 10% of my feelings towards the casting. But, I mean, historically, there's always been talk that the character would be a female at some point. It was discussed back in the 80s when Tom Baker was in the role. When he was leaving, there was a suggestion, I think he even suggested it, or somebody thought about it, that the Fifth Doctor could potentially be a female. So when Jodie was announced, it was obviously a huge deal. And a lot of people liked the idea, but there were a lot of people that criticized it. I remember there were a lot of posts online, specifically on Instagram. People were paying tribute to Doctor Who, saying, well, you had a good run, but now the show is ruined forever. Or, you know, how the females are going to destroy the show. And honestly, I think Jodie did great. Nothing changed. There is that small little fear that because the Doctor is now a woman, that they may focus on that a bit too much, but as somebody who has seen her whole run, not including the final episode, which at this point hasn't happened yet. Remember, I'm filming this in August, so they haven't even announced anything about her final episode. So probably by the time this comes out, there will be a lot of info about it, but as of right now, we don't have any info about her final episode. But speaking as somebody who has seen her whole entire texture, nothing has changed with her being in this role, and I think she did a really great job. She definitely fit the role perfectly, and the topic of the character being a woman, I will admit, came up very briefly. In her first episode, she makes a comment how, oh yeah, I am a woman. That's different. Various times throughout season 11, it was just like little one-liners like, oh, I never did this when I was a man, this is kind of cool. Yeah, it was mentioned in season 12. I don't think they mentioned it in the Flux season at any point. I don't think they did, but where I'm getting at is it doesn't matter who the Doctor is played by. The Doctor is still the same character no matter what. And that definitely shows now because we have the next actor taking the role next year or 2 years, because the future of the show is a little strange. I don't think we're actually getting a full season next year because it's the 60th anniversary, so they're working on the anniversary episode. But we have Nsuti Gatwa, who will be the first black Doctor. I believe he is also the first gay actor to take on the role, so I can't really make comments now because I haven't seen anything. I could just make a comment on the casting, and to that I say I'm looking forward to it, and that's all I could say because we literally haven't seen anything. At least when we see a regeneration, we can make a little comment because we at least see something. But for now, all I can really say is I'm looking forward to the future of this show to see what Nasuti brings. I was talking about Jodie. I wanted to say something. I don't remember. The Woman Who Fell to Earth was good. There were a few things that bugged me, and they still bug me now, and this leads to the discussion of what I think overall of Jodie's texture. I thought she did amazing. Not everything was perfect, though. She could have been written better. This is a common thing that I have seen online. Everybody who talks about Doctor Who, specifically Jodie's texture, all say the same thing, that she does great, but the stories aren't working for her. And I 100% agree with that. In season 11, there was definitely something missing, and it wasn't necessarily the villains, because Chris Chibnall wanted to go the different route of doing new monsters instead of recurring monsters. I think the only recurring monster we really got was the Daleks in the New Year's special, which also was a big change. Up until that point, there had been Christmas specials, but they seem to have stopped doing the Christmas specials in favors of New Year's specials, which has definitely had an opinion on a lot of people. They love the Christmas specials, but I mean, the New Year's specials aren't that bad. At least we're getting new content. But for the most of season 11, there really wasn't anything exciting about it. It was really just episodic in comparison to other seasons. There wasn't a main story I felt like was being told. I mean, I guess if there had to be any kind of story arc, it would be the relation between Graham and Ryan. Maybe that, because there was a little character development there. It just kind of felt like that it was very formulaic, where the characters would be somewhere, there was a problem, they try to fix it, they are almost in danger, and then it resolves itself. Like, that's usually how a Doctor Who episode goes, but there's usually, like, stakes, or something interesting happens at the ending that will connect to the next episode, or connect later on in the series. I felt like something was missing. There was definitely a lack of suspense and even a little adventure. The Ghost Monument, which was the next episode that followed The Woman Who Fell to Earth, that one was alright. I did like that episode. It was her trying to relocate her TARDIS. And the next episode after that was Rosa, which was a nice historic episode. But there was definitely something weird about that episode. Like, I just wasn't connecting with the villain very well, and Arachnids in the UK, a lot of people don't like that episode. I actually kind of like it, and I think that's because it aired around Halloween and it gave off a very Halloween-y vibe, so that's the only reason why I kind of like that. The rest of the episodes are really forgettable for me. I don't even remember the name of episode 5 and 6. I think episode 5 is the something conundrum. I don't even know how to pronounce it. And then episode 6 is the demons of something that starts with a P. Episode 7 was Kablam, and I did like Kablam. It felt like an old style Doctor Who episode, like something you would see in the David Tennant or Matt Smith era, maybe even Capaldi and Eccleston. Maybe more of Eccleston, now that I think about it, maybe like the earlier episodes of the revival. Episode 8 was Witchfinders, which I liked a little. And I definitely think it was a great episode to display the Doctor's challenges with being a woman. That's what I wanted to say earlier. Remember, I couldn't find the words that I wanted to say. I had a thought and I lost it. I wanted to say something. That's what I wanted to say. I don't remember. The Doctor definitely being a woman would be an issue if she had traveled into different time periods where things were a little differently than they are now. You know, just kind of historically, like, the women would have to take essentially the back seat, because that's just how the times were back then. And definitely in the Witchfinders, seeing how it was a time where they thought females were witches and they would drown them, like, that definitely is something that I could see being a problem for with the Doctor, because nobody's going to take her seriously. So I liked that element of her trying to find out how she can get around this sort of situation, especially since at one point she is almost drowned in the water. Is that a word? Drowned? Drowned? Who was the guy? The king in that episode? Charles something? King, was it King Charles? Whoever the king was in that episode, he also did fantastic. I liked him in the story also. It Takes You Away, I believe, is episode 9. I couldn't get behind that one. And the finale, the battle of whatever, Ravik, whatever that battle was, that was not fun. There were references to a lot of things in the season, but I felt like season 11 was very weak. Resolution was nice. I definitely enjoyed that. There were a little more stakes. So, for a little while, Doctor Who wasn't great. It didn't help that 2019 didn't have any episodes other than Resolution. But in 2020, out of everything that had to come out of that, we did get a genuinely great season. Well, I shouldn't say great, but we got a good season. An alright season. Season 12 of Doctor Who was much better, and they kicked it off in a great way with Spyfall. The reveal of the Master was very exciting. I personally did not expect to see him appear that soon. I mean, just 2 seasons prior, we had the incarnation of Missy, who battled off against Peter Capaldi. So, I mean, I felt like that it was a little too soon, but I genuinely didn't expect them to do the Master. And when it came to this season, it dawned on me that all of season 11 may have been designed the way that it was, that we saw. Like, it was in the premiere episode of season 12 where it dawned on me that, yeah, the Doctor hasn't really shared much with her companions at this point. Like, she hasn't discussed her origins, where she's from, who she really is, what she's able to do, and the whole reason why she's traveling, and the villains that she... Like, there's a lot about the character that she had yet to tell anybody. And at this point, within the 2nd season, if the companions stay on, they usually know everything about the character at this point. And they're just starting to learn everything about her now, which was really interesting. So Spyfall was definitely a glimpse of hope that we may actually have a really good season. And then Orphan 55 came on my television. Fortunately, that was the only extremely bad episode of the season, because we then got the Nikola Tesla episode, which was pretty good. And then we got Fugitive of the Jadoon. Jadoon, yes. The Fugitive of the Jadoon, which was magical. It was probably the best episode at that point, either right after or before Spyfall. I don't know how I would rank them, but it was an event. I won't even give any spoilers away for this one because it's just really great. It does, however, have a little problem, but we're going to talk about that problem at the end. The episodes that follow also are not horrible. There was an episode that was a little too similar to the events of COVID-19, but how would they have known that? This was filmed months prior to the pandemic and also aired just about a month prior to it. The Dream episode was interesting, and then the final 3 episodes of the season were really cool because it dealt with Cybermen. I did not expect a Cyberman to appear in an episode that didn't even hint would have a Cyberman in it. This is the Villa episode, the vintage... Episode 8. It was in episode 8. The one with the baby. The finale was also really good. It was also the final appearance of Graham and Ryan, and I'm very glad that they didn't have an ultimate fate. They seem like too nice of characters to go out in a really horrific way, either by death or choosing to stay in battle, and then the fear of, oh my god, are they going to die? You know, they just left on their own terms, which really hasn't happened in a while in the show. That happens in the New Year's episode, now that I'm realizing it, which is another Dalek episode, which is great. I actually really enjoyed that episode a lot. And then currently we have the Flux season, which is season 13. A shorter season, but that's because of COVID. That's 6 episodes, and then we have 2 other episodes, which are specials that don't really connect with the Flux, but they're the episodes we got this year. This season introduces Dan, who is a fantastic companion. I love Dan. I'm sad that he's leaving along with everybody else. Dan is probably my favorite companion, right next to Graham in this era. But the stories were great in the Flux. It was an interesting storyline. I think it could have ended a lot better. I wasn't so pleased with the way it ended. I felt like that it led up to nothing, essentially. The Weeping Angel episode was incredible. And then the last 2 episodes that we have so far that aired this year. The New Year's episode was nice. And the most recent one, the Pirate/Sea Devil episode, was a big letdown. I expected more pirates. I expected more Sea Devils. I expected a good story. And I didn't get any of it. I feel like that episode was heavily cut down. There was a lot of bad editing choices. And honestly, I think that best sums up how Jodie's era has been. Just a lot of bad choices when it comes to post-production, maybe even pre-production. The writing just wasn't... It wasn't there. Everybody, I think, was fine, but I felt like they said things that didn't need to be said, and things were done that didn't need to be done. Personally, I don't have a problem that this is how Jodie's Doctor is written, because every Doctor is written very differently and they all act differently. So I think in comparison to Capaldi, who was very grumpy and sarcastic at times, and then even going to the classic Doctors, how William Hartnell was the grumpy grandpa, and Patrick Troughton was goofy, and he was a clown, as John Pertwee once called him. Every Doctor is very different. I don't think, in comparison to Jodie, it's a big deal that this is how her incarnation acts, but in terms of story, it just wasn't great. They just didn't hit the right notes to make it feel like Doctor Who, which I think is the biggest letdown in Jodie's era, which really stings, because being the first female Doctor, she should have had a flawless era, like every other Doctor has, and now she's not really considered a favorite of many. She could be a favorite to some. Some people may love her episodes. For me, I am not that big on the episodes. You know, definitely in comparison to all the other seasons, there are episodes that I don't like, but there are a lot of episodes that I really enjoy. Half of Jodie's episodes, I don't even remember most of them. I can recall a lot of things that happened in the David Tennant era, or the Smith era, or the Eccleston season, but I can't recall everything that happened in her era, because they were just very forgettable and very bad. But she's got one more episode. She's got one more last hurrah, one more battle to fight before she dies. And I have no idea how this is going to go. We honestly have no information about this special. Again, by the time this is out, maybe there will be some more info. Maybe there'll even be a trailer. Who knows? The episode could premiere next week for all I know. This episode I'm hoping goes out on October 11th. It's August now, and I believe the special may air on August 16th, so maybe it's perfect timing. I have absolutely no information on what's going to happen, and I'm very excited to see what happens. I'm just hoping that it hits all the right notes. It feels like Doctor Who, and I'm hoping the ending is very surprising and shocking to me. I'm also hoping they clear up what has become a very big plot hole in the show, which is now something I have to address because it is a big factor in Jodie Whittaker's era. Chris Chibnall obviously wanted to add some more mystery in the show, because I guess there was too much about the Doctor that we already knew. Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies obviously built up the characters. You know, there was a little backstory. They added some stuff that had never been addressed in the show. But I guess Chris Chibnall was like, we should add a new element. It started in the Ghost Monument, which was the second episode, and I genuinely thought that was going to be the story arc of Season 11. I was very disappointed when Season 11 ended, and we had no information on what the Timeless Child was until we saw Spyfall, when it was finally mentioned again, and I was very excited to see where it was going. And then we got a little insight as to what it all is, and in the Season 12 finale, we got the answers as to what it all is about, and it continued in Season 13, and I don't know how I feel about it. Supposedly, Chris Chibnall has rewritten the Doctor's history. The Doctor is no longer just an ordinary Time Lord that stole a TARDIS and ran away from Gallifrey. He's not just your average ordinary hero. He was always destined to be a hero. Or she. Did I say he? He is still a she at the moment. Apparently, the Doctor was not from Gallifrey. She is not a Time Lord. She's somebody who managed to fall onto the planet, and she was raised by a woman named Tecteun, and this child had the ability to regenerate her body anytime it found itself wounded or on the verge of death. That energy was taken from her, implemented into who became Time Lords, and the higher up Time Lords decided this is too much power, we should limit it to only 12 times, a total of 13 lives, and the mind of the Doctor was wiped to have any of this knowledge, and became William Hartnell. I don't know how I like that, because it kind of destroys an already perfect backstory. Like, the Doctor was never meant to be somebody special. The Doctor just kind of became special because she chose that life. She chose that name. I mean, it's kind of cool that there's essentially a secret origin story to the Doctor, but it kind of does mess a lot of things up, and I feel like that it destroys something that was already perfect, especially when you add Jo Martin into the mix. Jo Martin is known as the Fugitive Doctor. She was in the episode Fugitive of the Jadoon, and she was one of the big surprises in that episode. Nobody saw it coming. I didn't see it coming, and I was honestly excited for her when I saw it happen. But it's a little confusing because she is apparently a past version of the Doctor, one before William Hartnell, I guess, and it raises so many questions, such as, why does she have a police box? Why is her ship a police box? That's not supposed to happen. I'm hoping that's cleared up in the special, but I don't think it will be, because Chibnall has hinted that once he's done the Timeless Child story arc, that's it. That's all it is. It's like I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, Jo Martin's a really good Doctor. I actually think she would work really well in between Troughton and Pertwee, because there is this little mystery as to what really happened after that regeneration. But, I mean, I guess we have that. I would like to see more of Jo Martin's Doctor before I really call her a Doctor. We haven't really gotten much of her. So, she definitely can play the part. That's not a question. This woman can play this role. I just want to see a little more of her, and I'd like to understand her a little more, because I'm very confused. Also, the idea that you're stripping away William Hartnell's title of the actual First Doctor, kind of a little disrespectful. So that's all I have to say on Doctor Who. I think I've given all my thoughts that I need to give. I am definitely looking forward to the 60th anniversary. I'm very excited to see what they're doing, especially since there is so much we don't know about. Like, why is David Tennant back? And why is his TARDIS looking like Jodie's? And also, who are these other people that he hinted at were going to be in it at Comic-Con? David Tennant hinted that there are more people that we don't know about at Comic-Con. I'm excited to see that. I'm looking forward to seeing Nasudi in the role, I feel like it's going to be a while till we see that. Neil Patrick Harris is in the 60th. I'm looking forward to seeing that also. There's a lot I'm looking forward to, but right now I'm looking forward to really seeing how this last episode of Jodie turns out. Hopefully, it is not a bad one. That's all I have to say on that matter. That's all I gotta say about my Doctor Who. If you'd like to check out the full review video of Doctor Who I did, it'll be in the link in the description, as well as the catch-up video. You can check out what I had to say about the women who fell to Earth. The woman who fell to Earth, not women. There's not more than, well, there is more than one woman, but you know what I mean. You watch the whole thing, you just watch the one part. Do what you want. I'm not your mom. Let me know if you agree with me on what I have to say about Doctor Who. If you're a Whovian yourself, are you a Whovian? I don't call myself that. I'm a Doctor Who geek, that's what I call myself. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you've even seen the show. And also let me know your suggestions for any other Wild Review episodes I've done that you would like to see me re-look over. I probably already have them in my list, because again I have a bit of a list ready here of some videos that I will still talk about. But I am open for any other suggestions for future Rewilds. That's all I have to say now. I will see you next week. Thanks again for watching the Wild Review Rewild. I'm the Wild Reviewer, and you just saw me review a thing.
Wild like wild.
That's the sound the ship makes. I have it as my text tone, but everybody thinks it's a dinosaur.